Welcome to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast where we are obsessed with her books and can't stop thinking about it or talking about it. So we figured, why not record us thinking and talking about it? So
we're going to break down chapters, go through each book separately, go into character analysis and any thoughts or kind of theories that we have about books, characters, plots, etc.
And maybe play some fun games along the way.
Exactly.
So welcome and enjoy. So we're just going to do this.
Yeah, why not? Just dive in.
We're just going to dive in.
And then we'll get much better at speaking and thinking out loud.
That's how it happens. Because every podcast I listen to, it's funny when you go back and listen to like the very first episodes, you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds so funny compared to
like way better ones.
And that's okay.
I agree. I'm totally cool with this.
Okay.
So, chapter 1 of A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Well, first, who are we? Welcome.
Welcome
to it was a court of fairies and fangirls. I think that was what I made it. A court of fairies and fangirls.
Welcome.
I'm Alex.
I'm Sarah.
I hope you can tell our voices apart.
And we'll be your hosts for this wonderful, wonderful journey.
And we're here because we've read all of the Sarah J. Maas books, and we cannot stop talking about them.
So we thought you might want to listen to us talk.
Yeah, it's just another excuse for us to talk to each other and make it seem like there's a purpose to it. And maybe there is, but at least we get to keep talking about these awesome books. Yeah. So. Oh, and the idea behind this, let's say real quick.
Okay, yes.
This will be, if you've read this series before, these main episodes are going to be spoiler-free. We're going to try to stick to what we're reading in the book, and we're going to read a few chapters each episode and break down and talk about those chapters. If you want to gush about spoilers, listen to those minisodes. And that's when we're going to talk about the things that we're just like, absolutely cannot contain, even for those who have not yet fully read the series.
Yes, and we will warn you at the beginning of every minisode that it is full of spoilers. Yes. As a reminder for all those people that don't listen. Yeah,
for the person who like randomly jumps into it. But this, spoiler-free.
Yes.
And if we accidentally spoil, we're sorry. But we're going to try. So this week, chapters 1 through 4 is what we wanted to talk about. And Sarah's notoriously bad at recapping.
I am. So I'll let you recap, but then I'll go first for the thing I want to point out. Because it's like the first 2 paragraphs.
Okay, so should we recap chapter by chapter? Just recap chapter 1 first?
Let's just recap chapter 1.
Okay, so I was really artsy with this. We get a picture of the lands, cold, desolate, alert to danger, and Farah reflects it well. We learn her family is poor, hungry, and that she's clearly their keeper. Farah finds a doe and a wolf and kills both to meet her family's needs. She thinks the wolf is Fae, but talks herself out of it, ultimately skinning the wolf for its coat. It's really what kind of happens in chapter 1. Not a whole lot of dialogue, but a lot of internal monologue about the cold and hunger and all that good stuff.
That is correct.
So, what'd you notice?
Okay, so literally the first 2 paragraphs that I started reading, I was like, is this the Hunger Games? Am I reading another version of the Hunger Games? And then right away, it's like, paragraph 3, there's Fae. And I was like, oh no, not Hunger Games.
Right.
It's like, we are fantasy right now.
Right.
So, but then seriously, like the whole first chapter, I was like, this is the Hunger Games, but is it going to be Hunger Games plus fairies?
I haven't read the Hunger Games in so long, but that is the opening chapter, is her hunting.
I think it is, or if it's not, it's like in the first few chapters, and it's like, it's cold, she's hungry, they're starving, it's like this, teenage girl taking care of her family because the rest of the family sucks and is lame.
That's so true.
I felt like I was reading the Hunger Games, and I was like, thankfully I've read this book already, so I know how it turns out, and it's not the Hunger Games, but first time I read this, I was like, is this just another Hunger Games? But there's fairies, so I feel like it's automatically way more exciting.
That's true.
Because
That's a really
I love
good point.
Fairies.
Yeah. Okay, let's see, what did I tab in this chapter? Okay, I thought it was so, like, sweet and sad when she talks about how all she wants is for her sisters to be married, for her to hang out with her dad, and paint all day. I was like, it's so simple and pure, and I'm like, you poor soul, you're, like, stuck in the woods, and, like, just gave me feels. It made me feel, like, sad for Farah.
It does. It makes me feel sad that it's like your biggest dream is to get rid of your family so that
yes!
you can just like take care of yourself. Like, how sad is that?
That's so sad.
Super sad. Also, this relates to when they first mention fairies. They talk about fairies eating humans.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, do fairies eat humans? Is that the kind of fairies we're going to have in this book?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, but...
Right, because when you first think fairies,
yes,
you think of, like, Tinkerbell.
Yes.
You don't think of, like, monsters eating people.
No, because basically, to me, that's cannibalism, even though I know they're not technically the same species.
Right.
And I was like, do we have, like, killer fairies on our hands that eat people?
Right, and it's like, well, what do they look like also? Like, is it like 1,000 little Tinkerbells eating people? Like, I don't know. But I definitely, entering this world where there are fairies was like, it was new for me. I've never read series where fae were, like, the main creature. Like, I've read where vampires and werewolves, like, I feel like I have that really well down in my brain of, like, what do they look like and what are their norms? But this, I was like, I have no idea what to expect from a fairy.
So my thought when I think fairy, because there's really no movies or anything with fairies, I think Legolas.
Oh!
From Lord of the Rings. He's my only, like,
I mean, he's
reference.
an elf, but that's...
But, like, he's got the pointy ears. He's
when she goes on to describe fairies, like, throughout this series, and, like, Throne of Glass, it totally gives you elf vibes, like, from Lord
and I was
of the
like,
Rings.
I know he's not technically a fairy, but, like, that's the only reference I could think of that was... in a movie that I could, like, picture, like, beautiful, lives forever, pointy ears.
It would be, like, that plus, like, magic powers.
Yeah.
Because Legolas didn't really have... I mean, it was incredible with a bow.
Beautiful.
And
also,
just beautiful. Real quick, when, in Lord of the Rings, I love the fight scenes so much just because of Legolas.
He's the only person I like to watch.
Right. He's, like, sliding down an elephant's trunk. Or, like, I'm just like, how are you so cool? And honestly, I get that vibe from most of the fairies in the book. That's a really great comparison.
Yeah. But I was just thinking of Legolas eating people, and I was like, that ruins everything.
Oh.
So, but I'm glad they don't eat people. So.
Spoiler, but.
Small spoiler.
Little baby spoiler.
But it doesn't change anything about the book or what you'll learn about the book. And you'll learn way more very quickly. So.
I think they have every right to be afraid
yes.
of the Fae at this point.
Correct. Totally agree with that.
If nothing else, they are these intense magical creatures that no one understands. And I think we learn throughout this book that the human perception of Fae is very different than reality in a lot of ways.
Well, I was going to say they believe ash and iron kill fairies, which is to be determined at this point.
Right.
I just want to point out, because I feel like this is very relevant for later on. Okay, so after Feyre has shot the arrow at the wolf, it says, and if it was indeed a fairy's heart pounding under that fur, then good riddance. Good riddance. After all their kind has done to us, I wouldn't risk this one later creeping into our village to slaughter and maim and torment. Let him die here and now. I'd be glad to end him. Yeah. So it's intense to feel that way about potentially it being a fairy. It could just be a poor little wolf.
I know.
But it's very important, her thought process.
Yes. Well, and then, okay, the last sentence of this chapter, I had a sticky next to it. It was, but this was the forest and it was winter. And I was like, outside and in your heart, Feyre, like, holy crap. Because you're right. Like, she had that whole inner monologue at the end of just being like, good riddance. I hope he dies. I don't care. And I was like, okay, a little intense.
And literally,
Feyre.
the sentence before, I wish I had it in me to feel remorse for the dead thing.
Exactly.
So she's really hard in her heart. She's winter inside and out right now.
Exactly.
Hardcore.
It's a very intense start to the book. You're like, what am I getting myself into?
Agreed. That's all I've got on chapter 1. So
okay.
I feel like there wasn't really much more.
No, there wasn't a lot. I have a lot more in the next few chapters, though. So, chapter 2 recap. You can't see my book, but there's colorful stickies in it. And I have a sticky saying how the chapter made me feel, and just a warning, this one was cranky. And so that is, I think, how we should all feel about this chapter, where we meet Feyre's lovely family. So, my recap is we meet Dad, who's lost everything, quiet, beaten down, and very much disrespected by his children. We have Nesta, who is angry, selfish, clever, and quite cruel.
And also, she is the eldest sister.
That's true. That's another thing to talk about, is the birth order. Nesta's the eldest, and then right after her is Elaine, who's a bit of an airhead, but kind. And then the youngest is Feyre, which it's just also, like, not to jump the gun, but, like, why is she the one taking care of the family?
I agree. Why is the youngest taking care of 2 older sisters and a dad?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I put all 3 are dependent on Feyre, but also don't really even pretend to support her, i.e. cut the wood. Feyre is tired, too tired to hope. And then I put, they eat well, but squabbles arise.
That is a good summary of chapter 2.
Yeah. So, what do you see about, like, the relationships playing out in this chapter?
Oof, they make me, as you said, cranky. It's just astounding that people can be so different, even though they're all related. I think the dad, honestly, I dislike more than Nesta. I think her dad, because, I mean, yes, he lost his wife, which you learn in this chapter, that she died. But I don't know. I feel like even if you lost your wife and lost your fortune, and yes, you're now crippled, you should still be attempting to do something. Like, he could chop the wood just because you have a bum leg. You can still chop the wood.
Well, he tries to sell those little wooden figurines.
Yeah, but, I mean, really, like, who's that helping? I feel like he could help his household.
Right.
By doing that. Or, I don't know.
Or, like, emotionally help your household. Like,
Right.
say you're truly crippled
Yes.
and you can't do jack.
Yes.
Can you help the emotional well-being of your children? Like,
Yeah.
help your one daughter feel strong about the good work she's doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can help in other ways.
Yes, there's many ways. And he just sits there and feels sorry for himself. Which, like, I get as a man, if you lost everything, lost your fortune, lost your...
Typical man.
Typical man. He's a total typical man, which pisses me off. Because if it was a woman who lost everything, she'd get right back up and take care of everything.
Ain't
just
that the
like
truth?
Feyre.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes. But I feel like Nesta takes after her dad because even though she supposedly looks just like her mom, I feel like the way she's acting is so immature. So it's like even though her dad is sitting there doing nothing, feeling sorry for himself, Nesta's acting...
She's also, I mean, I guess she eventually cut the wood.
Right.
But she's also not doing much.
No, she feels totally sorry for herself and she's just putting on this massive... So like the exact opposite behavior of her dad, but the same feelings.
Yeah.
So I hate both of them.
Right.
I do. I have very strong hatred towards both of them. And then Elaine, I feel like as the story goes on, I dislike her more because in the beginning, you see she does kind of seem airheaded-y. I don't know if that's a word. And so you're like, oh, poor girl. Like, she's nice to her dad. She's nice to everybody. She likes flowers. So you're kind of just like, she's the sweet sister. They're all helping.
Yeah.
You can't be mad at Elaine. But I get mad at Elaine as the books go on.
Well, I first assumed, apparently I skimmed over this, but I assumed she was the youngest when I first read this. And then I think I was having a conversation with you or someone else, and they were like, no, Feyre's the youngest. And I was like, what?
Yeah, she acts...
Because she acts like the baby.
Yeah, youngest kid syndrome, for sure.
She totally does.
And then Feyre's got the oldest kid syndrome.
Right.
And Nesta's...
And you're like, Nesta, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Just, ugh.
But also, I do think what Elaine brings to the table is, like, within that, like, depressing space, I feel like she's trying to bring, like, beauty and joy into it in her own way.
She does, and she brings, like, that hope aspect. So I
Right.
appreciate her for that, but...
Yeah. Elaine is, like, meh. Nesta and her dad are, like, dear Lord.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Yes.
I actually think, so I get what you're saying about the dad, but Nesta, like, deeply, deeply bothers me,
Oh, I
too.
hate her. Hate her
because
so
it's
much.
like, I'm like, what? Because it's one thing to just be like mopey, but it's another one to be antagonistic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just making things worse for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you're doing?
I mean, she belittles Feyre and calls her all these horrible things after
Well, and
she...
it's probably because
literally-
she feels like crap that she's not doing enough for her family.
Of course. But she could. She could totally do more. It's her choice to sit there and
Victim
be...
cycle.
Exactly. Total victim. And it makes me mad. So... That's my thoughts on their relationships.
Well, also, but like, it was funny reading this because it's like it felt like I was watching like a sitcom or something because it's like Nesta and her dad have beef. Nesta and Elaine are like tight. Elaine and Feyre are like fairly tight. Her dad and Feyre are like meh, and like Nesta and Feyre are like beef. And it just, I don't know. It felt like I was like, if I was in that room, I would be like bouncing from like person to person, like not knowing where to look because there's like so many dynamics there
It's true.
going on.
I feel like we need to draw a diagram. Can we upload diagrams to our podcast?
That would be...
So it's like...
I bet you we can link a picture. Let's draw a picture.
We'll link a photo for everyone to observe
our thoughts on this dynamic with hilarious words like beef on there.
Let me see what else.
Also, though, and we can talk about this later, but I love that Feyre's a painter.
Yes.
And I love that she, like, painted the home. And you know what I'm talking about. I know. I have a blue field sticker next to it.
I have so many exclamation points next to it. So much foreshadowing. I don't know if I want to drop what.
Well, let's just say the painting dresser is a really cool depiction of the sisters as time goes on.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that more in our spoiler mini after this.
Because it is so amazing. I love it
it's
so
amazing.
So much. Sarah J. Maas is amazing for even thinking of this.
She is a genius.
Pure genius. I love her
like,
so much.
Honest to God, Sarah J. Maas is like, I think is she my favorite author now? I don't know. I think so.
Can I tag her? Can I tag you, Sarah, in this?
I mean, we can. I'll post it to Twitter later. I'll post this to Twitter and Instagram and tag her and just be like, we love you. You're our hero.
Seriously, though, I think she's probably one of the best authors.
The story is so intricate.
Yeah.
So, like, for those of you reading along, like, pay attention to everything.
Even though you don't even know what to pay attention to.
Yeah, you don't know yet, but, like, just pay attention to everything. And when you read the book, like, 4 times, you'll start to see these little things.
Yes,
but
because this is my, actually, 3rd time reading this book.
Same.
And, I mean, even reading it this 3rd time, I think because we're actually paying attention and we're trying to analyze it, I noticed so much more.
Yeah.
So much more than when I just read for funsies. This is...
For funsies.
For funsies. This is for funsies, but this is for work.
Well, and you, dear listener, are probably reading for funsies, and we're doing the hard work for you. We're doing that analyzing. That's why you're listening, so that you can read for funsies and then
also get all the details.
Analyze with us.
Exactly.
But yeah, I love the painting. I love the dresser, which she notes depicts each of the sisters. Why she painted each drawer a different scene for the sisters. Which, on a side note, quick plug, there's a really great boutique on Instagram called The Common Room Shop. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
She's incredible. Actually, it launched today, so I might need to pause for a sec so I can do this. But she just released today a night court. Like, she does bookish theme releases, but they're like boutique.
Yeah.
So, like, some are branded with the items and some are, like, just, like, in, like, connection to it, like, have the essence of it. And she has one. It looks like a band t-shirt that's released today called the Archeron Sisters. And it has each of the 3 things that are on this dresser. And it's so cool. I know.
We're going to pause.
We're going to have to pause and go do Thank you so much for listening to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls, a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And let us know what you think. Jump in on the conversation. We look forward to chatting with you more next week. Bye-bye.